Eli. You see, Grandma's been working on her geology stuff. That's why I have all this stuff right here. Anyway, let's go. We're going chapter 7 now. The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. The willow wren was twittering his thin little song, hidden himself in the dark selvage of the riverbank. Though it was past 10 o'clock at night, the sky still clung to and retained some lingering skirts of light from the departed day. And the sullen hearts of the torrid afternoon broke up and rolled away at the dispersing touch of the cool fingers of the short midsummer night. Mole lay stretched on the bank, still panting from the stress of the fierce day that had been cloudless from dawn to late sunset, and waited for his friend to return. He had been at the river with some companions, leaving the water rat free to keep engagement of the long-standing with the otter. And he'd come back to find the house dark and deserted and no sign of Rat, who was doubtless keeping it up late with his old comrade. It was still too hot to think of staying indoors, so he lay on some cool dock leaves and thought over the past day and its doings and how very good they all had been. The rat's light footfall was presently heard approaching over the parched grass. "Oh, the blessed coolness," he said, and sat down, gazing thoughtfully into the river, silent and preoccupied. "You stayed for supper, of course," said the mole presently. "Simply had to," said the rat. "They wouldn't hear of me going before. You know how kind they always are, and they made things as jolly for me as ever they could, right up to the moment I left. But I felt a brute all the time, as it was clear to me that they were very unhappy, though they tried to hide it. Mole, I'm afraid they're in trouble. Little Portly is missing again, and you know what a lot his father thinks of him, though he never says much about it." "What? That child?" said the mole lightly. "Well, suppose he is, why worry about him? He's always straying off and getting lost and turning up again. He's so adventurous. But no harm ever happens to him. Everybody hereabout knows him and likes him, just as they do old Otter, and you may be sure some animal or other will come across him and bring him right back again. Why, we found him ourselves miles from home and quite self-possessed and cheerful." "Yes, but this time is more serious," said the rat gravely. "He's been missing for some days now, and the otters have hunted everywhere, high and low, without finding the slightest trace. And they've asked every animal, too, for miles around, and no one knows anything about him. Otter's evidently more anxious than he'll admit. I got out of him that young Portly hasn't learned to swim very well yet, and I can see he's thinking of the weir. There's lots of water coming down still, considering this time of year, and the place always has a fascination for the child. And then there are those, well, traps and things, you know. Otter's not the fellow to be nervous about any son of his before it's time. And now he's nervous. When I left, he came out with me, said he wanted some air, and talked about stretching his legs. But I could see it wasn't that, so I drew him out and pumped him and got it out of him at last. He was going to spend the night watching for the ford. You know, the place where the old ford used to be in bygone days before they built the bridge. Well, it seems that it is there he gave Portly his very first swimming lesson," continued the rat. "From the shallow, gravely spit near the bank. And it was there he used to teach him fishing, and there young Portly caught his first fish, of which he was so very proud. The child loved the spot, and Otter thinks that if he came wandering back from wherever he is, if he is anywhere by this time, poor little chap, he might make it for the ford. He was so fond of it, and if he came across it, he'd remember it well and stop there and play, perhaps. So Otter goes there every night and watches, on the chance, you know, just on the chance." They were silent for a time, both thinking of the same thing. The lonely, heart-sored animal, crouched by the ford, watching and waiting for the long night, though on a chance. "Well, well," said the rat presently, "I suppose we ought to be thinking about turning in." But he never offered to move. "Rat," said the mole, "I simply can't go and turn in and go to sleep and do nothing, even though there doesn't seem to be anything to be done. We'll get the boat out and paddle upstream. The moon will be up in the hour or so. Then we'll just search as well as we can. Anyhow, it will be better than just going to bed and doing nothing. Just what I was thinking myself, said the rat. It's not the sort of night for bed anyhow, and daybreak is not so very far off. Then we will pick up some news of him from early risers as we go along. They got the boat out, and Rat took the sculls, paddling with caution. Out in the midstream there was a clear, narrow track that faintly reflected the sky, but wherever the shadows fell on the water from bank, bush, or tree, they were as solid to all appearance as the banks themselves, and the mole had to steer with judgment accordingly. Dark and deserted as it was, the night was full of small noises, song and chatter and rustling, telling of the busy little population who were up and about, plying their trades, vocations through the night till sunshine should fall on them at last and send them off to their well-earned repose. The water's own noises, too, were very apparent than during the day. It gurgles and clops more unexpectedly near at hand, and constantly they stared at what seemed to be a sudden clear call from an actual articulate voice. The line of the horizon was clear and hard against the sky, and in one particular quarter it showed black against a silverly climbing phosphorescence that grew and grew. Look at, there they are on their little boat. At last, over the rim of the waiting earth, the moon lifted with slow majesty till it swung clear of the horizon and rode off, free of moorings, and once more they began to see surfaces, meadows widespread, and quiet gardens, and the river itself from bank to bank, all softly disclosed, all washed clean of mystery and terror, all radiant against by the day, but with a difference that was tremendous. Their old haunts greeted them again in another remnant, as if they had slipped away and put on this pure new apparel and come quietly back, smiling as they shyly waited to see if they would recognize again under it. Fastening their boat to the willow, the friends landed in this silent silver kingdom and patiently explored the hedges and hollow trees, the tunnels and their little culverts, the ditches and the dry waterways. Embarking again, crossing over, they worked their way up the stream in their manner while the moon, serene and detached in the cloudless sky, did what she could, though so far off, to help them in their quest, till her hour came and she sank earthwards reluctantly and left them, and mystery once more held the field and river. Then a change began slowly to declare itself. The horizon became clear, field and tree came more into sight, and somehow with a different look. The mystery began to drip away from them. A bird piped silently and was still, and a light breeze sprang up and set the reeds and bulrushes rustling. Rat, who was in the stern of the boat, while Mole sculled, sat up suddenly and listened with a passionate intentness. Mole, who with gentle strokes was just keeping the boat moving while he scanned the banks with care, looked at him with curiosity. "It's gone," sighed the rat, sinking back to the seat again. "So beautiful and strange and new. Since it was the end so soon, I almost wish I never heard it, for it was aroused of longing in me. That is pain, and nothing seems worthwhile but just to hear that sound once more and go on listening to it forever. No, there it is again," he cried, alert once more. Entranced, he was silent for a long space, spellbound. "Now it passes on and I begin to lose it," he said presently. "Oh, Mole, the beauty of it, the merry bubble and the joy, the thin, clear, happy call of the distant piping. Such music I never dreamed of. And a call in it, it is so stronger even than the music is sweet. Row on, Mole, row, for the music and the call must be for us." The Mole, greatly wondering, obeyed. "I hear nothing myself," he said, "but the wind playing in the reeds and the rushes." and oysters. The rat never answered, if indeed he heard. Rapt, transported, trembling, he was possessed in all his senses by this new divine thing that caught up his helpless soul and swung and dandled it, a powerless but happy infant in a strong, sustaining grasp. In silence, Mole rowed steadily, and soon they came to a point where the river divided, a long backwater branching off to one side. With a slight movement of his head, Rat, who had long dropped the rudder lines, directly the rower to take the backwater. The creeping tide of the light gained, and now they could see the color of the flowers that gemmed the water's edge. Clearer and nearer still, cried the rat joyously. Now you must surely hear it. Ah, at last I see you do. Breathless and transfixed, the mole stopped rowing as the liquid run of that glad piping broke on him like a wave, caught him up, possessed him utterly. He saw the tears on his comrade's cheeks and bowed his head and understood. For a space it hung there, brushed by the purple loose leaf that fringed the bank, then the clear, imperious summons that marched hand in hand with the intoxicating melody imposed its will on Mole, and mechanically he bent to his oars again. And the light grew steadily stronger, but no birds sang, as they wont to do at the approach of dawn. But for the heavenly music, all was marvelously still. On either side of them, as they glided onwards, the rich meadow grass seemed that morning of freshness and a greenness unsurpassable. Never had they noticed the roses so vivid, the willow herb so radious, the meadow sweet so odorous and pervading. Then the murmur of the approaching weir began to hold the air, and they felt a consciousness that they were nearing the end, whatever it might be, that surely awaited their expedition. A wide half-circle of foam and glittering lights and shining shoulders of green water, the great weir closed the backwater from bank to bank, troubled all the quiet surface with twirling eddies and floating foam streaks, and deadened all other sounds with its solemn and soothing rumble. In midmost of the stream, embraced in the weir's shimmering arm spread, a small island lay anchored, fringed close with willow and silver birch and alder. Reserved, shy, but full of significance, it hid whatever it might hold behind a veil, keeping it till the hour should come, with the hour those who were called and chosen. Slowly, but with no doubt or hesitation whatever, and in something of solemn expectancy, the two animals passed through the broken, tumultuous water and moored their boat on the flowery margin of the island. In silence they landed and pushed through the blossom and scented herbage and undergrowth that led up to the level ground, till they stood on a little lawn of marvelous green, set round with nature's own orchard trees, crabapple, wild cherry, and sloe. This is the place of my song dream, and the place the music played to me, whispered the rat, as if in a trance. Here in this holy place, here, if anywhere, surely we shall find him. I think this is a good place for us to stop, my love. What do you think? Love you.